Hi there. Thank you for being here with me today. What you're about to hear is not just a story. It's a journey back to the parts of ourselves we often forget. The parts we buried, ignored, or left behind. Simply because we didn't know how to hold their pain. But healing begins the moment we choose to return. So take a breath, settle in, and listen with an open heart to today's story. I'm sorry I left you behind. A healing story to my inner child. The old house stood on a hill overlooking the town, its paint peeling like sunburned skin, its windows dark and vacant eyes staring out at a world it no longer understood. I hadn't been back in, God, how long had it been? 30 years? More? The memories clung to it like ivy, choking the life out of the present. I pulled the car over, the gravel crunching under the tires like bones. I had to do this. I owed it to her. I owed it to myself. I got out, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. It smelled like regret. Like forgotten promises. Like the ghost of my childhood. I walked towards the house, each step heavy with the weight of unspoken apologies. The front porch sagged under my feet, the wood groaning in protest. I reached for the doorknob, cold metal against my trembling hand, and pushed. The door creaked open, revealing a cavern of shadows and dust. Hello? I called out, my voice barely a whisper. Silence, only the echo of my own fear. I stepped inside. The air inside was stale and heavy, a suffocating blanket of the past. The living room was exactly as I remembered it. The faded floral wallpaper, the threadbare rug, the worn armchair where my father used to sit, lost in his own world of newspapers and silence. And in the corner, the rocking horse, his paint chipped and his mane matted, still waited patiently for a rider who would never return. A wave of nausea washed over me, a mix of grief and guilt. I remembered her then, the little girl with pigtails and scraped knees, the girl who believed in magic and fairy tales, the girl who loved unconditionally and forgave easily. The girl I had abandoned. Her name was Lily, and she was me. My inner child. The part of me that had been wounded, neglected, and left to fend for herself in a world that didn't understand her. I had buried her deep inside, hidden her away behind layers of defenses and masks, convinced that she was too sensitive, too vulnerable, too much of a burden. But now, standing in this house, surrounded by the ghosts of my past, I couldn't ignore her any longer. She was here, waiting for me. Waiting for me to acknowledge her pain, to validate her feelings, to finally say the words she had longed to hear. I started to walk through the house, each room a trigger, each object a painful reminder. The kitchen, where my mother had spent hours cooking meals she never ate, her face etched with sadness and resignation. The dining room, where family dinners were silent affairs, punctuated only by the clinking of silverware and the heavy weight of unspoken resentments. The bedrooms, where dreams were born and nightmares took root. And finally, the attic. The attic was a forgotten world, a repository of unwanted memories and discarded hopes. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced through the cracks in the roof, illuminating cobwebs and forgotten treasures. Old toys, broken furniture, and boxes filled with photographs and letters littered the floor. I climbed the creaking stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew she was here. I could feel her presence, a faint whisper in the back of my mind, and then I saw her. In the corner, sitting on an old trunk, was a doll. A rat doll, with button eyes and a stitched smile. A doll I had made when I was a little girl. A doll that represented everything I had lost. I picked up the doll, its fabric worn and faded, its stuffing lumpy and uneven. I held it close to my chest, and the tears started to flow. Tears of grief, tears of regret, tears of recognition. I'm so sorry, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. I'm so sorry I left you behind. The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of years of silence. I sat down on the trunk, the doll clutched tightly in my arms, and I started to talk. I told her everything. I told her about the pain, the fear, the loneliness. I told her about the times I had felt abandoned, rejected, and unloved. I told her about the dreams I had given up on, the hopes I had buried, the person I had become. And as I spoke, I felt a shift within me, a thawing of the frozen parts of my soul. A reconnection with the little girl who had been lost for so long. I realized that I had been wrong. Lily wasn't a burden. She was a gift. She was the source of my creativity, my empathy, my compassion. She was the part of me that still believed in magic, in love, in hope, and I had abandoned her. I had tried to silence her, to suppress her, to erase her from my life. But she had never given up on me. She had always been there, waiting for me to come back. I spent hours in that attic, talking to the doll, talking to Lily, talking to myself. I cried, I laughed, I raged, I forgave. And slowly, gradually, I began to heal. I realized that healing wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about accepting it, about integrating it into my present, about honoring the little girl who had survived it. It was about learning to love myself, unconditionally, just as Lily had always loved me. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the attic floor, I knew it was time to leave. I stood up, the doll still clutched in my arms, and I walked towards the stairs. But before I left, I turned back and looked at the attic, at the ghosts of my past, at the little girl who had waited so patiently for me. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for never giving up on me." I walked out of the house, the doll in my arms, and I knew that I was no longer alone. Lily was with me, inside me, a part of me. And together, we would face the future, with courage, with hope, with love. Leaving the town, I knew it wasn't a destination that mattered, but the journey. And the journey of healing had just begun. I drove towards the horizon, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, a promise of a new dawn. The weight on my chest had lifted, replaced by a sense of lightness, of freedom. I wasn't running away anymore. I was running towards something, towards myself. The next morning, I woke up feeling different, lighter, somehow, as if a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I went to the mirror and looked at my reflection. I saw the lines on my face, the wrinkles around my eyes, the gray hairs at my temples, but I also saw something else. I saw a strength, a resilience, a wisdom that I hadn't seen before. I saw Lily. She was there, looking back at me, smiling. I spent the day doing things that made me happy. I went for a walk in the park. I listened to music. I read a book. I cooked a healthy meal. I treated myself with kindness and compassion, just as I would treat a dear friend. In the evening, I sat down and wrote a letter. It was a letter to Lily, my inner child. "Dear Lily," I wrote. "I'm so sorry for leaving you behind. I know I hurt you, and I know you were scared and lonely. But I want you to know that I'm here now. I'm here to stay. I'm here to protect you, to love you, to cherish you. You are not alone anymore. I promise to listen to you, to validate your feelings, to honor your needs. I promise to never abandon you again. You are a part of me, and I love you just the way you are. Thank you for being so brave, so resilient, so loving. Thank you for never giving up on me. You are my hero, with all my love. Me." I folded the letter and placed it in a special box, a box I had created to hold all the things that reminded me of Lily. The doll, the letter, photographs, and other mementos. From that day on, I made a conscious effort to nurture my inner child. I practiced self-compassion. I set healthy boundaries. I pursued my passions. And I learned to say no to things that didn't serve me. I created a life that was filled with joy, meaning, and purpose. And slowly, gradually, I began to heal. The wounds of the past began to fade, replaced by a sense of peace and wholeness. I learned to love myself unconditionally, just as Lily had always loved me, years past. I built a successful career, I found fulfilling relationships, and I created a life that I loved. But I never forgot about Lily. She was always there, a guiding light in my life, a reminder of the importance of self-love and self-compassion. One day I received a letter. It was from a woman who had read my story online. She told me that my story had touched her deeply and that it had inspired her to start her own healing journey. "Thank you," she wrote. "Thank you for sharing your story. You have given me hope." I smiled. I knew that Lily would be proud. And I knew that my journey had just begun. It was a journey of healing, of growth, of self-discovery. And it was a journey that I would continue to walk with Lily by my side for the rest of my life. I understood finally that taking care of myself, my health, wasn't selfish. It was essential. It was the foundation upon which I could build a life of purpose, a life of love, a life of contribution. Neglecting my inner child, neglecting my mental and physical well-being was like trying to build a house on sand. It might look good for a while, but eventually it would crumble. I started incorporating small, consistent habits into my daily routine. I meditated for 10 minutes each morning, focusing on my breath and cultivating a sense of inner peace. I exercised regularly, not to punish my body, but to celebrate its strength and resilience. I ate nutritious foods, nourishing myself from the inside out. I spent time in nature, connecting with the beauty and wonder of the world around me. I also learned to set boundaries. I stopped saying yes to things that drained my energy or compromised my values. I surrounded myself with people who supported and uplifted me. I learned to say no without guilt or explanation. And most importantly, I learned to be kind to myself. I stopped criticizing myself for my mistakes and imperfections. I embraced my flaws and celebrated my strengths. I treated myself with the same compassion and understanding that I would offer to a dear friend. It wasn't always easy. There were days when I felt overwhelmed, discouraged, and tempted to give up. But I kept going, one step at a time, knowing that every small act of self-care was an investment in my long-term health and well-being. Over time, I noticed a profound shift in my life. My energy levels soared, my mood improved, my relationships deepened. I felt more connected to myself and to the world around me. I was living a life that was aligned with my values and my purpose. And then one day I received another letter. This time it was from my sister. We hadn't spoken in years due to a long-standing family feud. But she had heard about my healing journey and she wanted to reconnect. "I'm so proud of you," she wrote. "You've inspired me to start my own healing journey. I want to apologize for the things I did in the past. I hope we can rebuild our relationship." I cried tears of joy. I realized that my healing journey had not only transformed my own life, but had also had a positive impact on the lives of others. I called my sister and we talked for hours. We forgave each other, we laughed, we cried, and we made plans to see each other soon. As I hung up the phone, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. I was grateful for the pain, for the struggles, for the lessons I had learned. I was grateful for Lily, my inner child, who had never given up on me. And I was grateful for the opportunity to live a life of health, happiness, and purpose. Looking back, I realized that the key to health wasn't about chasing some elusive ideal. It was about embracing my imperfections, accepting my vulnerabilities, and loving myself unconditionally. It was about nurturing my inner child, setting healthy boundaries, and making choices that supported my well-being. It was about living a life that was authentic, meaningful, and aligned with my values. And as I continued on my journey, I knew that I would always have Lily by my side, guiding me, supporting me, and reminding me of the importance of self-love and self-compassion. Because health, true health, starts from within. It begins with forgiving yourself, loving yourself, and embracing the beautiful, imperfect person that you are. It's about remembering the little girl who loved unconditionally and promising her, "I'm sorry I left you behind, but I'm here now, and I'm never leaving again." Years later, I found myself back in that old house on the hill. It had been renovated, transformed into a center for healing and wellness. A place where others could come to reconnect with their inner child, to heal their wounds, and to rediscover their own capacity for love and joy. As I walked through the bright, airy rooms, filled with the laughter and chatter of people on their own healing journeys, I felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. The old house, once a symbol of pain and neglect, was now a beacon of hope and healing. And I knew with absolute certainty that Lily was smiling. I sat in the garden, beneath the shade of an ancient oak tree, watching butterflies dance among the flowers. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blossoms and the gentle hum of bees. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin and the gentle breeze in my hair. In that moment, I felt completely at peace. I had come full circle. I had faced my demons, healed my wounds, and transformed my life. And I had done it all with the help of my inner child, the little girl who had never given up on me. I whispered a silent thank you to Lily, promising to continue on this path of healing and growth, to always honor her spirit, and to never forget the lessons she had taught me. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had been worth it, because in the end, I had found myself. I had found my way back home. And I was finally truly whole. Thank you so much for listening. If this story touched something deep within you, you're not alone. Maybe there's a part of yourself, a younger version of you, still waiting to be seen, heard, and held with compassion. Take a moment today to reconnect. Write a letter. Look in the mirror with kindness. Or simply sit in silence and say, I'm here now. I haven't forgotten you. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing it with someone who might need it. Because healing is a journey and no one should walk it alone. Until next time, take care of your heart. And never stop showing up for the child within.